Well, because StreamYards has some stuff if you're willing to pay for it, because they let you do the branding and all the rest of that.
Hey, Twitless,
what's up?
We're live.
Okay.
Yeah.
I knew that. I was just filling the void with some empty banter, as I do.
It's a Thursday. It's the Mattriarchy. I am here with Twitless, who shall remain nameless, as we discuss the Red Rooster.
Yep.
Our RJ from Critical Blast should be here later, unless something horrible happened to him or he forgot that I'm in Mountain Time. We just talked about it earlier today, so hopefully that's cool. But that's fine. That's fine. So we are live, and we are here to talk about Red Rooster. I got mine finally. Look at this tome, this thing of I don't know, man. I have mixed feelings about the whole Red Rooster situation. So I have to start with my story. I've told my story before, but I have to start my story. I was on the Red Rooster train. I heard about it. I met Mitch over Twitter in 2018, maybe even late 17. One of the first people I started. Hail Rebel Comics. I said hello when you first got here, man.
Once is not enough.
Before we even went live. Anyhow, as I was saying, he was pitching the idea, old school Golden Age style comics, classic heroism, not dealing with the whole modernist deconstruction stuff, but getting back to classic storytelling. And but I was in the shower. Now I'm back. Okay, fair enough. Sorry. And I love that stuff. I love that idea of the classic heroine.
I was going to say, I saw you because there was a stream that I think it was Eben Boyette did. And I saw it was just I was watching it to do some research on Red Rooster, and I clicked on that and I saw it. And I think Edwin was interviewing Mitch, and I looked at the chat and I saw you pop in there in the chat from this archived old stream. And I was like, I know who that weirdo is.
I had so much hope in my heart.
And you were like, oh man, because like you are, and this is not an insult at all, but it definitely, I think, tickled your fancy because of how it, especially the coloring, the imagery, that first issue, it definitely evokes mythology. Yes. You're a freak about myth.
This is true.
Yeah, the more I hang out with you, I know that Reese loves mythology. That is like yeah.
Well, and part of the situation too is also the other thing is like the archetype of it, and I love the fact that like he was wanting to like do like a love letter to like the rural America, right? Mm-hmm. Like the whole Batman in a barn pitch, whatever you think about the level of the pitch, but the idea that you've got this, transcontinental hero, this man of the people, this actually getting out in the sticks kind of a thing. And I love that, that early and mid-century Americana stuff, that bridge. I mean, a lot of the style is that bridge between like Art Deco and I'm going to forget the name. I just learned a new word for like later streamlined stuff that people think of as Art Deco, and I always thought of it, but somebody was talking about it. I think it's I can't remember, Real something, but yeah, anyway, that whole like mid-century kind of thing, man. And when I heard about it, I was really keen on it, and every time no and Larry's giving me shit. I deserve it, but it's funny. But anyway,
if Larry keeps giving you crap, you need to challenge him to a duel, because he's he plays the video games. I was going to say I might brush up on my Super Smash skills, because there's no way I'm going to challenge Larry to Tekken, because that guy's he's on another level.
Yeah, for sure. He's got a certain set of skills. Anyway. So that thing dropped, and the minute I could afford it, man, I was in. Red Rooster was the thing I wanted.
You were in like Flynn.
Oh, you wouldn't believe it, man. I was. And, but then, it was more than a year late. And I'm like,
right, Larry. That's why I would have the advantage, because I do. I'm not going to pick a fight with you on your own, on your own platform. Your ranked grandmaster or whatever the hell.
So I was getting to be more than a year late, and he was talking about some of the other projects they were talking to roll out, and they announced the prequel to the whole Walmart deal, and I was just like, I lost faith when I heard about the Walmart deal. And I'll tell you why. Not entirely, mind you, not entirely, but I was just like, I'm not giving Allegiance any money. Man, you guys are cracking me up. I said, I'm not giving Allegiance any more money until I get my Rooster book, because, I just that seems like he's, what's he been doing? He's an artist with draw, right? I mean, he got enough money to do that for a living, so get some drawing. Mm-hmm. That's what I want to see. So I just kind of got suspicious about it, and then when that first issue hit the Walmart before we got anything, I was mad. And then that second issue, I was mad. And the third issue got delayed, and I was on Facebook. And Mitch had posted some sort of pictures about something exciting to do in their office there in Little Rock. Like they got a new shelf or some such, right? And he's like, yeah, we're grown-ups now, was the kind of post. I mean, it wasn't that exactly, but it was some sort of legitimizing thing. And so I said, I got on Facebook there, and I said, I don't want to see you post anything until I see my chicken book.
Right. Yeah.
And so he blocked me. Oops. And somebody else was like, why do you got to pick on Mitch? He's had a hard time. And I'm like, he's an artist. He should be drawing.
Right.
Where's my chicken book? That's all I want. I don't want Mitch to be unhappy. I don't want him to be unfulfilled. I want him to draw. He's an artist. I want him to draw. And he blocked me. And then they refunded my money. and I was just like, I was going to send it back, but I wasn't sure I'd ever get my chicken book. But I actually commissioned some art with the money. But I did get my chicken book. They did send it to me. I was totally surprised. I didn't expect it. And I was going to do a little off the cuff review, just me, before I had a chance to talk openly about it.
Sure.
But I have my own feelings on the subject now. So let me ask you, did you get the campaign edition there, Twitless?
I did not. So actually, I'm going to share my screen because I actually have a visual aid. Where is it? Boom. So this is where I found mine.
Oh, yes. I've seen this picture before.
Okay,
it's marvelous.
So you'll notice that I went to the bathrooms at Walmart and I found the Illusion Arts stand right next to that. So
you got both the stands there on that picture.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
The red one is laying on the floor and the black one is laying on the floor. Now, for those of you in the audience, I gotta you may know this, you might know this, but in case you don't, I'm a Walmart veteran. I did about 2.5 years at Walmart in my youth. You make it sound like
you almost made it sound like you were going to say I did 2 tours in Walmart. Those were hard days. Some days I didn't think I was going to come back alive. Customer service, man.
Sweet. Okay, I gotta give shouts out to Larry. Got to run to work. Got to do a write up for OT Press. That's so cool. I am for Antarctic Press. I am so excited that that's happening. I've
oh, nice. Oh, congratulations, Larry.
I think may have already pre-ordered 17, but I will double check. So I'm excited. I got to go to my shop and double check that this weekend. So anyway, yeah, I'm excited to see that, Larry. So congratulations.
Congratulations.
Yes. Awesome. Yeah, that's cool. Okay. Anyway, but so those displays, back to my time as a Walmart.
Right, your 2 tours in Walmart.
2 tours.
Walmartistan.
Walmartistan. No, I wasn't too. I was a stockman. It was a pretty cool job for a while. But those, and I also was like in toys, which was awesome. But that's a different thing. Anyway, those displays are called sidekicks.
Mm-hmm.
And those oh hey Evie, how's it going? Those are called sidekicks, and they're made to be on the side of an aisle. They're made to take sales space advantage of the fact that shelves, you can't put anything on the side of a shelf. So on the end caps, you have these bare shelves there's nothing space on there. So somebody at some point in the past invented a sidekick, and they're to lock themselves right into the thing. And ooh, that's so cool. Okay. But this is what I'm talking about. This is what I'm talking about at school. Anyway. And it's supposed to just take up some space, extra space, and everybody sees sidekicks all the time. You don't always even notice them, but they're there.
Right, yeah,
and these shelves are specifically designed to hang on the sidekick. So the idea is that you're supposed to be
eye level, right? Isn't that...
eye level.
Yeah. Okay.
Right at eye level. And so and the very top two shelves should be just about 4 to 5 feet, right in there, where most people's eye levels are not.
Right,
not where mine are, but because I'm not a giant, but I am 6'2", so gotcha. I'm about a head taller than your average person. Anyway, so the idea is that you're trucking along through the Walmart, and you round the corner, and your eyes pop and say, "Oh, hey, that, my friend, is a comic book. I remember those from the old days." And it's supposed to get the juices going, where people say, "Oh, I'll buy that for my kid. I used to love comics," until they see it's $5. And
$4.98
$4.98 for a magazine that has about the same quality as the Women's World they sell in the checkout stands.
It's printed on heavier stock than I think your average comic book.
It is well, I don't think it's heavier than the average comic book, because there's the covers, because the covers are actually the same stock as the interior.
Yeah, but overall it's heavier. It's a heavier book, because when I compare it to my other just floppies I've got, at least some of the old, my older Marvel books, it definitely has a little more heft to
it. Actually, that is about my height. But yeah, a Draw and Talk. Tyler, I was inviting him on, and he's like, "Oh, I can't make it. I got another thing coming, and besides, I haven't read the Rooster book yet." So,
we can spoil it as you read it.
We very well may. So
you need to read fast enough so that we're spoiling it right after you've read that particular part. It's a race. So
you picked up the floppies.
I did, yeah.
And I like I said, I was painfully, yeah. Look at this. This is Seven's got the ticket on here. But Walmart display pick needs a large red Rooster banner or poster on the white wall. And I agree. The marketing was left a lot to be desired.
It wasn't. Right? It wasn't the best.
It wasn't the best. But the problem is I think any large Allegiance Arts red Rooster banner is going to end them up in copyright problems with Chick-fil-A. So,
do you want to show them?
I mean this right here?
Yeah, like the Chick-fil-A logo they got going on there.
Yeah, right there. Well, and here's what the thing is. I don't think has anyone mentioned the Red Rooster isn't even red. Not yet. We haven't.
Well, he's got some. There's red in there.
There's red in there. The cape is red, right? So, yeah. One of the things about the thing is Patrick. I can't remember his last name. Johnson.
Oh, okay, sorry.
He's come on the show a couple times, and one of his complaints is that this is a paperback comic that has a dust jacket, right? And it's actually the same paper as the interior stock on the cover as well. I personally don't mind the dust jacket. It's got the die cut thing on there, and the emboss shows through. I don't mind that, because it kind of reminds me of the He hates the
Does I was gonna say like the dust jacket wouldn't. I don't think that would bother me. I'm more of a. I know that some of these paratextual elements are important to people. I don't know. I guess I'm just more invested in just what's inside the story. I'm less concerned with the packaging of it, but I understand that is important. So I understand that I don't understand it.
Here's why I didn't mind the dust jacket at all. First of all, it gave a more rigid feeling to turning it. Right. And this is Kyrie, Matt Cross's Kyrie.
Yep.
It has, I think this is called a French cover, right? Where it's a barely heavier paper. It's a little barely heavier cardstock, but it's got a fold in it. So it almost turns like a hardcover, right? While still being able to bend it, you have that distinct edge on the corner. So it makes it easier to turn pages, right? And I think this is really good. If you read it with the dust cover on, this book has a similar touch to it. Both have the matte finish on them.
Mm-hmm.
So the quality of the paper product, the printing, was good.
Yeah, that's what I was saying. Like when I picked up the books in Walmart, when I held them and it was on a heavier stock, I did appreciate that. It did make them stand out a little bit. See, the issue though is that unfortunately, you tend to need to be a heavy comic book nerd to notice that sort of thing. Kid's not going to notice. No. A teenager, like a young adult, is not even going to notice these elements. I did not notice any of this stuff until I guess what was it, my 30s, when I finally started going, oh, like the paper you printed on is a different. Before that, I was just like pictures and words. You know what I mean? Like it takes time for your brain to start really, it's kind of like when you have you have someone who's just been introduced to like coffee or alcohol, you know what I mean? And it's like you have that person who's like, in their 50s or 60s, and they swish the wine, the sommeliers, they swish the wine in their teeth, and they go, oh, I detect the hints of walnut and the oak, and that it was this aged in a barrel. And you get this young kid who's just like, the alcohol make me feel nice. So like,
what yours didn't come out of a box? I don't get it.
Yeah, right. Yeah. So I'm like, when you're a youngster, you're not going to care about like what weight of paper the picture book comes in.
That's true. The thing is, though, I think you do notice like growing up with newsprint comics in the newsstand,
sure,
with the glossy covers, the newsprint interiors. When you find a book that doesn't match that, then that's for me. That's when I started noticing when I started checking out the prestige format books.
Gotcha.
Right, and I was like, oh, so this feels different. The pages turn different. The reading environment maybe needs to be a little different because.
You need to curl up by the fireside with this premium comic book.
And also, depending on how long it's been on the spinner rack, you need to read it on the table to keep it flat, to keep it from folding over on itself. Those sort of things. Because the spinner rack was I will say this again. It was an amazing device that turned this week's Near Mint comics into next week's fair. Uh-huh. The real incentive to getting comics on Friday was so that they didn't get ruined by the time you got them. Mm-hmm. So, yeah.
What were we talking about?
Anyway, they're talking about the dust jacket and keep them in better condition. The thing is, the Walmart books didn't have the dust cover. That's just the
yeah. So like, I'll hop on camera for just a second. Let me make sure I can safely do that. Yeah. So like, I have the just the floppies. Oh,
I love. Oh, it's also got the proud sticker.
Yeah, I've got the Walmart sticker. I've been I on air. I was trying to lift some of that. It's not the most heavy duty sticker, but you got to be careful, or you're gonna rip this cover.
Especially because the cover's not that heavy, but also because it's that matte finish, so it's going to want to hold that glue.
Right, and it's well. Like it's just like, dude, you need to make it. I feel like there were certain things that needed to be followed up on. There was two of them that I was like, I know Mitch is way too busy, even if he wanted to follow up on these things. But one of them was the fact that that sticker, and it's like when you have this thing and it's advertised as, was it it's collectible comics, and that's actually specifically what they put on the Allegiant Arts
the sidekicks.
Yeah, the sidekicks.
Yeah.
And they were like collectible comics. And it's like, dude, if you want this collectible comic and you're going to slap on this Walmart sticker on it, and it's going to take like some, surgical precision to remove, that kind of goes against what you're trying to do there.
Yeah, for sure.
And the second thing that was even worse was from a marketing standpoint. If you try to go to walmart.com and you look up Red Rooster, like the Walmart inventory like lies to you. Like no, like seriously, like you'll look up Red Rooster, it'll say we don't have it in any of our stores, and then you go to the actual store and they actually have it, but the website won't actually tell you that they have it. So either Walmart's ashamed that they stock it, or something else is going on there that I don't know. But I'm just like, it was just all these extra steps for me to actually get the book, and I was looking for it. And it's like, it's always bad news when someone's looking for an item and it's difficult for them to get it, because it means that if you're not looking for it, there's probably no chance in hell you're actually going to find it, which goes against the whole idea of stocking them in Walmarts. So there were some things that I think needed to be improved upon. It's still a good idea to do.
No, I think so too. I think Walmart is Walmart's a trash website. Tyler says. I don't disagree with you. It's probably is.
Yeah, I won't argue with that.
Yeah. I don't really use it.
I can see this.
I can't comment, but yeah, which is crazy because Walmart's like the second largest company on earth, right? Maybe the largest. I don't know, but
I think Amazon's got them at this point.
I think they have. I think they surpassed them last year. But the thing is, it seems like the only if you know about the book ahead of time.
I mean, he's right. It was kind of fun. It was like I was hunting for No.
I mean, okay, like going back to the old the spinner rack days.
I was going snipe hunting.
Yeah, it was. I mean, you're following a book, and like with the way the news distribution was, you didn't always get to every book at every like little shop or bodega or whatever, right? We don't have bodegas. I live in Nebraska, but you know what I mean. little corner stores or whatever. And so it'd be a thing where like I went to most of my comics I bought at the Co-op grocery store, right? But if I went next month to get Detective Comics and they didn't have it there, and I was like, well, I gotta get Detective Comics. So then it's like, Mom, listen, you got to drive me to the bookstore, in the mall. She's I'm not doing that. I'm like, okay, I'm going to walk. and I know there's a gas station on the way. I'll look at the gas
right, exactly. Like the 7-Eleven.
Yeah.
So,
hello.
Hey there. Sorry I'm late, but the after party with Charles Santino after the show went on a little bit longer. We were discussing some stuff.
Yeah, I saw that. Yeah, you were interviewing. I saw Charles yesterday. He's been doing. He's making the rounds.
But I dug this out before.
I also have mine. We've just been discussing the packaging of the books, and Twitless has the Walmart editions, and so we were talking about Walmart.
Yeah,
I have the first two Walmart editions. I haven't gotten any of the others.
Yeah.
Well, there's only 3 for the for Red Rooster. Because have you followed along with any more of that? Because Mitch ended up saying on his YouTube channel that he thinks that the issue 3 may be the last comic that he himself does for the foreseeable future. And the implication from that, it's on his YouTube community. You can see it. And he had this long post where he talks about the process and everything he's been going through. And the implication that I got from it is that if Red Rooster 2 comes out, I think he might be handing it off to another creator to do. Okay. That he was going to focus specifically on the Allegiant Arts business side of things. That doing the business side and doing the book was too much, which made some sense. But I think that's the current direction of what he is doing.
Well, I don't think that makes any sense at all.
As long as he keeps, I'll say this.
I feel like that makes negative sense. Okay.
We can get into that later.
And I have a whole shelf full of the flaming carrot that agrees with me.
Was the flaming carrot black and white, or am I mistaken on that? Okay,
it was black and white.
All right. But
it was black and white up until the Image run. It ran for like 14 issues in Image, and those were all colored. But
I will say that whoever he hands the creation to, I hope Elizabeth Breitweiser does the coloring, because I said this before on another review I did, but Elizabeth's back must hurt from how hard she carried this book, because the things that are good about this book, I think, are largely due to her coloring.
Yeah, well, and the art is gorgeous.
Yeah, and I have to agree too. There are several pages in the middle section that probably would have been the second book that the pencil lines, it's rough pencils that have been done digitally and quickly and handed off, and with the intention of letting the colorist cover for the fact that the pencil art is not finished. There are a few pages, and I mean there are some action scenes, so they seem a little evocative, and so it's I'm not even faulting it. And part of Mitch's style is that sketchy thing, and I love the sketchy thing. But there's particular pages, and I didn't look them up ahead of time because I just got off work.
Now I'll address the slipcover. Did you get the slipcover edition?
Yeah, I did. Yeah.
Okay. Just me. If it were, because I'm kind of crazy. I would not have done this full book slipcover. I would have done the die cut right at the cape, and just let the cape be the slipcover, and still let this face here have been the face of the actual cover behind it.
That would have been awesomely cool. I absolutely agree with you. The problem is the interior cover would have to have been cardstock too, and it's not.
Yes. It is not. No, it is very.
It is the same interior stock, which, I mean, with the slipcover, I don't think harms the reading ability of it, but I do think that you missed something with that.
And you did get the signed version, I'm assuming.
I think I did.
I will tell you this. I did not back this book.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. I did not back this book. I did not have the money when it was being backed. What happened with me was somebody got the book as it first, when it finally shipped out. They were somebody who was already upset with the entire process, and they put on Twitter, says, "I just got my Red Rooster today in the mail. I haven't even opened the package. $15 for the first person who wants it." I'm like, "I'm your Huckleberry." And he sent it to me. It was a sealed Gemini mailer with all the stuff in it. It's like, yeah, this is awesome. Cool. But Mitch has got to put out at least the fourth book at Walmart, because this is 4 comics. This isn't 3 comics. It reads like 1.5 comics as far as complete story content goes.
Well, that's we haven't gotten to talk about the story at all yet. And so first of all,
yeah, we should probably get to that, or else I don't think we ever it'd be like a 2-hour stream on the outward aesthetics.
The aesthetic of it. Well, and that's the thing is, I have to say, I want to give props to it. Like, it is a beautiful book. I have not seen anybody who is better. I think I can fairly say this. I haven't seen anybody who's better at colors than Elizabeth Breitweiser. Now there are other people that are as good, but I mean, she's top of the game, right?
Yeah, she's good.
Yeah, you get that, and I think Matt Krotz is up there or nearly up there. He would disagree with me about that.
I was gonna say, like, this is where we get into the personal. Like, well, I think my colorist on Omega Girl's fantastic. So
yeah, we'll see about that.
Oh, you know what? I could take it and mail it to someone else. You could order yours from Indie Plan like everyone else.
But I love the whole Golden Age feel to it. The costume designs, the coloring, the Dick Tracy quality of the villains. I was kind of surprised that there were people in this world that actually had super kind of abilities, because the heroes didn't, that I could see. Yeah. None of the heroes were. That's correct. Supernatural in any sense of the word. They were all action men. If you had a superpower at all, you were a villain.
It was very low on the superpower side of things.
The one possible difference in that is Strong Boy himself, who is inhumanly strong. But they don't really explain that. Is he just a genetic freak? Is he just really work out a lot? What's the story with that?
Yeah, I was gonna say, but when you see, he doesn't do anything in terms of feats of strength that you wouldn't necessarily see. Like, he doesn't lift up a car or anything like that, where it's like, wow, that's something that a human could never do. He's just like really like jacked. and he's just like built like a tank in a way. But like he's even dwarfed by that other slugs guy,
Slugmug.
Yeah, Slugmug. And so but no one really, even the villains they're mostly gimmick villains in terms of like they have a gimmick they do.
Yeah.
The only one who has powers, I guess, and it's kind of like sci-fi tech would be the 4D man. Apart from the mysterious villain, he's the one where he's the one where it's like there's something else going on, and that's where you kind of have to pay attention to the stuff that's outside the book, because Mitch ended up saying, oh, there's like Lovecraftian elements that I'm putting in this book as well, and it's like, oh, well, that would the only place where that actually makes sense would be for that the character that is
but you know what, you shouldn't have to check out an author's YouTube page to understand what's in their book.
I would agree. And that actually comes down to
good point.
two parts of my biggest complaints on the book, right? There are several, there are many, but two of the biggest problems I have is that they didn't take enough time to develop any of the characters. And that meant that I didn't care when anything happened to anyone.
Yeah, that's fair. Right? I think the only character that I would say,
with the exception, I will say there is one exception. Calvin, the kid at the beginning with the card, I cared about that kid. And he's only there for 3 pages. I have a theory about this, but I liked Midnight. She had just the right mixture of personality and giving enough. It wasn't much, but she had. I warmed to her because a lot of characters, even female characters can be written very tropishly, and she had a nice little. She gave because Red Rooster kind of criticizes her at one point, and she kind of gives a little bit of guff back, but she doesn't do it in an emasculating way. She's just kind of like they're just trading barbs a little bit, and so she showed a little bit of charm with that. And I was like, oh, I kind of like you. I'll give you that she had a personality, but a personality is not a character.
We're working with Red Rooster, man. I'll take what I can get. I agree with you, especially when it came to the two main leads, where you Red Rooster and Strong Mad Lad is what I called him. But that's a Homestar Runner reference for all you youngsters.
I don't get it, but it's still funny.
Okay. But yeah, so with Strong Mad Lad and Red Rooster, it's like you would want there to be at least a little more fleshed out with their characters. But I completely agree with you. By the time I hit the end of the book, if you asked me here's two main problems. I know Red Rooster by his name, Red Rooster. I completely forgot his alter ego's name, and it's like it's a Cooper, I think is what his name is. It's Cooper, yeah. I think it's Frank Cooper or something. But like Cooper, by the time we got to the end of it, it's like describe Frank Cooper, and I'm like, he's Red Rooster.
Well, well, first of all, you got to the end of it because I got to the last page, but
that's
a separate point.
It's only a beginning.
Yeah.
No, I agree with you. No, I agree. Season 1 is basically all just a giant flashback that's a setup for a story that we haven't gotten yet.
Exactly.
And that's one of the main issues with the plotting of the book. But are you guys aware with the behind the scenes story shenanigans?
Well, which set?
So if you flip open the book, it will say Mark Pellegrini as writer, and that is not accurate. Mark has actually come right out and said that I did not write Red Rooster, and that they took a couple of his ideas, but he is not responsible for this script. You will also notice that, and I have the separate issues, so I can see a little bit of this happening, but in the first issue, it says Mark Pellegrini, writer, and then it mentions Patrick Stiles as editor. By the time you hit issue 2, it actually says Mitch Breitweiser and Mark Pellegrini story, which is that very vague kind of conceptual thing, and then it says Patrick Stiles script.
That's what the trade says.
What it says.
Gotcha. Okay, so it does the same thing as well. Okay, so when you can kind of read between the lines is that whatever Mark did do, Patrick Stiles, I think, is largely responsible for the writing of this book. That's that's the image that kind of comes to me, is that Mitch and Patrick Stiles were the ones who were working on the story, and then Patrick was the one who actually did the writing. So like I said, I've asked Mark about it. Mark has gone on Twitter and just stated it outright. Even though he's listed as writer, and I don't know exactly what's going on there, he essentially is not the writer for this book.
And I think that there are, and that's why I was thinking, like in the first issue, the dialogue, even when they had the preview out, like I didn't even I guess he sent out like the second issue preview comic to the backers, and I didn't even download it because I was so annoyed at that point. But with the thing is with the first issue, I felt like the dialogue was super clunky for most of the book. I thought the dialogue was flat and forced. It was, and I want to get back to something that Tyler says in the chat. He says, RJ made me realize this book is not for me. It's a golden age nostalgia. I don't like those comics. It's all coming together. The thing is, it wants to be golden age nostalgia.
I was just about to get to that. That's actually my biggest level. Yeah,
the visual designs.
It's actually called. It's got a subtitle.
Golden Age. Yeah.
And I will say, like the style, the visual style, the mid-century style. It artistically is a golden age story.
I'd say look like something you could put together from your closet.
Yeah.
Okay. So I go back and forth on that. I think that this is golden age in style. Once you open the book, even visually, and you start reading it, when you pull up that first action scene where the guy who says, "Hey, little kid, I'm going to kill you for no reason," because we need to set up a situation where Red Rooster will save the day. The minute that action scene happens, I knew this wasn't golden age, because the minute that Frank Cooper starts fighting, it was all Watchmen, essentially.
Yeah.
It was like dislocating shoulders and blowing out people's mouths and their teeth falling out. And it was like, this is not Golden Age. Golden Age doesn't.
This is the Minutemen.
But what I meant with that is in terms of the style of the designs.
Yes. Okay. Yeah. Sure. Okay.
The costuming, the text, the technology that's involved in it, all that kind of stuff. Not in terms of Golden Age storytelling, because it's
aesthetic. You mean Golden Age aesthetic? Okay,
aesthetically,
yeah.
It's
There's
aesthetically.
Yeah. But it's weird because it's tonally. I have tonal dissonance from reading this book, and like I said, I'm not like confused because I could understand what happened in it, but I'm curious. Do the writers and creators understand the game they're playing? Because I don't know if they do, and I don't know if they're quite aware of the narrative tools they're using. Well, because normally when you set up a story the way that Red Rooster sets itself up, it plays out a certain way. So typically when you show so like the way the story, what it wants to be this setup, because as you mentioned, RJ, and we all agree with this, is that this is an extended flashback setup for what we would probably see in an ongoing series of Frank Cooper reclaiming, redeeming, re-becoming the Golden Age. So that's what I think the story wants to be. But here's the trouble. In the first issue, you would want to establish the status quo from the Northrop Frye kind of like, mythological blah, blah, blah standpoint. But you would want to establish what Golden Age you're reclaiming. That things were good and now they're bad and they can become good again. If you establish in the first issue that the Golden Age is just a load of crap and you deconstruct that concept, you can't reclaim it. You can't reclaim something that doesn't exist. And when they the only scene in the entirety of Red Rooster that we get that even hints at Golden Age existing as a concept is this scene here with the motorbike. And we're shown that that's basically it's ambiguous. It's shown that that's a movie thing. It's a movie screen. It kind of makes fun of it. It's like, oh, that's just a joke.
Right.
Well, if it's a joke, how can you reclaim that? The real world is where the characters live, and it's a dark, kind of brooding place. And it's like, well, where's the Golden Age then?
Well, and the thing is, if the dialogue, it lets on that that's real, that it's been recreated for the thing. But like,
it took me, I had to read that twice.
Super vague. Yeah.
I had to read that twice to even get that hint.
What it is you have to pay attention when people keep asking him about his hand, and he keeps talking about how he broke his hand on that jaw, and it's like, okay. Sure, fine. It's a broken. Okay, so it really happened, but they recreated it. But who knows? And
but here's the problem. And this goes right to my point. They recreated it on TV. The only Golden Age we see,
newsreels.
Right, the newsreel. But the sorry, I meant newsreel. My mistake. The on the silver screen. So
come on, get with it. We're
sorry, yeah, we have to be super old with this. No, but but this goes straight to my point. This actually proves my point, or reinforces it. Okay. The only time we see Golden Age, it's an invention, because in reality, even though him hitting Metal Mouth might have actually happened, it probably was way darker and gritty and not nearly as bright and colorful and as super heroic as it's being portrayed as. Yeah. So when it says Red Rooster Golden Age, I'm going to reclaim the Golden Age. Again, it's like, what are you reclaiming? Because it doesn't seem that the book believes in what it's trying to reclaim and believes that it exists. And I go, is that the story you're telling? Like, what are you trying to say here?
Well, and this is supposed to be a mantle that's passed down. So, we don't see, what his father did as Red Rooster or his grandfather did as Red Rooster. I mean, and if it's a mantle that's passed down, how long it's been passed down? This is the 20s, the 30s. What kind of a superhero are you in the 1850s?
Once again, if you listen to Mitch's streams in 2018, it's going all the way back to the Renaissance. Maybe earlier.
Yeah, he did that. There needed to be a little bit more of that lore in the actual book, because I knew that there was some of this background material, but only because I was going to seeing some of it being talked about. And it was like,
and this goes back to one of the other issues I have with this book is Styles. I'm going to just say Styles did it here. He followed the number one rule of comic book writing, which is tell and don't show. We're told all of these things. We're told that he's a hero. We're told that Midnight had given up a glamorous life to go become a heroine. We're told about this big mantle, and we're also told this mantle is nonsense. and Frank believes in this thing that we don't know what it is because they never talk about it.
And we don't see it.
But strong, and we don't see it, or maybe we do and we don't know that we do, but the closest thing we have to an eye on the subject is Strong Boy, who is 100% jaded.
He's a terrible character. I wanted to like him, but the book gives us no reason to.
No, I don't. I'm not saying we like him. I'm saying in terms of inviting you into the world through an observer. Sure. He's the closest there is to an observer of these things. But he's also everybody is an unreliable narrator.
The thing that bothered me the most, and again, I paid $15 for this book to somebody who got it in the mail, that backed it and didn't want it upon arrival and didn't even open it. But if I had backed it and paid for shipping and was involved in all the perks and the stretch goals and got past the whole Walmart issue, I'd be upset reading this through to the end because it's not a complete story. It's not a full graphic novel. I told you this, Matt. I ordered a Red Robin double bacon burger, and I got a slider from White Castle.
Yeah,
I'm still hungry at the end of this thing.
And that's part of my take on the whole subject too, is that I feel like it's exactly 2/3 too short. Yeah. This is the first third of a story,
right.
Which is fine if you're a publisher and you're putting something out every month,
even every other month,
the whole year,
or even if you have reliable 60 pages a quarter, that would be okay.
Does your version have the season 1 thing attached?
Not the trade paperback, no.
Okay, because mine actually says season 1. I don't know. Let me see if I can make this.
Yeah, the issues. I have the single issues, and they do say season 1. And
I've got it on camera there. So season 1, episode 1. So one thing I want to make very clear is the fact that I may have a very different judgment of the overall story when we get the whole thing. But if I had to judge, because essentially a season is like a year of a television show, and that is what they've chosen to go with for the marketing here.
Season 1.
That's season 1. If season 1, I'll just ask this as a general question. This is for chat as well. If you, as chat, you watched season 1 of a show and the entire season was a flashback that just set up where the story was supposed to go, and then that was it. It stopped. How would you feel about that season 1? Season 2 might be great. Season 3 might be great. But would you look back on season 1 and go, that was a great season 1? If all of it was just a flashback that basically ended as the story was basically about to begin.
The entire series of Better Call Saul is that.
I'm sorry. What'd you say, RJ?
the entire series of Better Call Saul is that.
Well, isn't Better Call Saul though a connection to an already established?
It is. You know, you're going to that place, but the entire story is flashback, and every season opens up with where he went after Breaking Bad.
Right. So I guess the point, I guess I should clarify for a new IP.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Because I think that example works so well because of Breaking Bad being so freaking popular, and people love Breaking Bad, and they want more of that content, and they're willing to.
And it's definitely an outlier. I only mention it because I'm binging it currently. So
sure. But like, if it's a brand new story and it ends before it's supposed to begin, it's like I feel like most people would feel gypped by that. Is all I'm saying.
And the other thing too is like one of my big problems. I wouldn't care about the formatting, right? If we actually saw what was going right. So like going back to the whole thing, and the reason I left this on the screen, Neo's comment right there, is that, and this just goes back to part of the thing. Mitch was touting the end of deconstruction with this, right? He specifically was saying,
was he?
Yeah, he was specifically saying we're reconstructing a fallen hero. It's going to be awesome. And there was zero.
Can you highlight my screen for a second? Because I think that this plays into that. So in the marketing.
Whoa.
Well,
that's the exact
opposite.
There we go.
So this is the marketing of the book. Notice who's holding Red Rooster in their hand. We have little Timmy and little Joey with Allegiance Arts books, and specifically little masked Timmy here with Red Rooster. And it's you can unbigify me, but the marketing seems to be, this is where, kind of along with what you're saying there, Aris, that it's like, we're fighting back against the forces of deconstruction and bringing it back to kids and stuff. And I'm like, this book is not for kids. There's no way this is for kids.
Yeah,
it's not a kid's book.
They would just get confused, I think.
Yeah.
I'd be like, Mommy, why is the good guy punching the bad guy and his teeth are falling out? He's ripping his shoulder out of its socket and stuff.
Well, first of all, speaking as a former little boy, I don't think that would have bothered me so much.
No.
Right? It's not the violence. It's the lack of direction, right? Like the reason you're okay with Batman, like totally like tearing into people, is because you believe that Batman is good. You believe that the villains, that they have to be stopped.
Maybe I'm a pearl collector. I did not like, for it being a golden age book, I did not like the line that it crossed with the graphic sort of I might have been the only one who was unsettled by this. The fight scene with Midnight crossed that line into Alan Moore territory, where it's just like, this woman is getting like beaten. And I'm not comfortable with this scene, as this is not fun for me.
Like it even earlier for me, when you finish the fight and you've seen the heroes defeat a bad guy even in recreated form, and Strong Boy is trying to strong arm some free beer from a guy. I'm like, if Batman punches the bad guy, we're all for him. If he goes back to the cave and pours himself a big old glass of scotch. And I'm like, wait a second, that's Batman?
Yeah, no, I hated that scene. And it's definitely a mirror of what happens earlier, where the other bad guy threatens to kill a kid for no reason.
She did not.
No, she did not.
It was only because somebody else stopped it from happening.
Wait.
That wasn't there. There was a threat in the wind.
But no, but she wins that fight single-handedly with a wrench. But it's like, it just crosses. I call it the Alan Moore threshold, where you have a scene with a woman and she's in a violent situation and it just crosses a line, and it becomes very unsettling. And Alan Moore seems to do this a lot. And it's just like, I feel always weird with this.
And for me, where I was with it, like, because like I had already seen, I have to back up, because when I first got the book, I opened it up and I flipped over and I saw the last page, right? Mm-hmm. And so I knew the story didn't have an actual ending.
Sure.
And knowing it didn't have an actual ending meant I knew where it was going.
Don't you have a couple extra pages I don't have? Doesn't
yes,
your... Okay,
but but they are an ad for the next Patrick Styles masterpiece that I didn't even bother reading.
So there's no more Red Rooster Rise. There's nothing extra.
Mm-mm. I don't think so.
I haven't.
Where does your story end?
All right, mine ends with him walking down the road.
Okay. Mine ends with him I guess there are 2 extra pages because here he is now on the train. Right?
Yeah, so that is extra, I think.
And then there's somebody who notices that he's wanted by the authorities, or wanted poster.
Yeah.
There you go, wanted poster.
Yeah.
So they're like, then they hold a gun on him because they're like, he's like, cock-a-doodle-doo. Look at that. And
I see it.
So there are 3 extra pages.
Okay, and so that's even worse because it's even darker. Because in mine he walks off and he goes, "No more Red Rooster," and this one, well, maybe that's a little better because it's like he's actually being threatened.
Yeah,
like cliffhanger,
So
like, no get into with the whole Spider-Man no more.
So this here is where
the
issue 1 leaves off, and then here is after issue 1. Or this is actually where issue 1 starts. Issue 1 starts with him walking away
from the narrative standpoint. Yeah, from a timeline chronologically.
Oh, it's a timeline thing too. No, you're right because Rascal's dead, and he's not dead.
Yeah,
when he walks off, so it actually starts after that. So there's Rascal dead at some point. So he's been roaming aimlessly. And then there's the Calvin character, who's the only good character in the whole damn book. And
page 1, when you see the cross and it's like, oh, they killed the dog. Yeah, this story is not for children. It begins with Old Yeller.
Yeah. Anyway, it was like if it had started there and then it was like, because you just my God, the and that's part of the thing is like the it's so decompressed. It's so decompressed. I cannot even get my head around like how little happens in this book, and at the same time not nearly enough, like there's not enough pages to cover the material to make you care about any of these characters. And like Midnight, spoiler alert, Midnight disappears from our dimension, probably dies. Who knows what will happen?
I guaranteed she comes back, and 4D Man probably as well. It's one of those like ambiguous, and that's also probably like time passes, she'll come out, and if there's any excuse for either her or 4D Man to have superpowers, it'll be because of that portal.
Yeah.
So that might be a way to introduce some other shenanigans to the story. I was okay with the portal, although the way it was introduced into the narrative was very sudden. It came out of nowhere, and because there was no character to give scientific explanation. They just look at this blue special effect and go, "What's that?"
That is the one page I had to read more than once in here.
Yeah, it's confusing. Yeah, I was just like, "What? What is that?"
Well, and because like 4D Man, and here's the other thing about it: they call him 4D Man, which is a great name.
Yeah, it's a great name. Yeah,
it's a great name. But they never explain what he does. He just shocks people.
Yeah, he's just electrical. Yeah, they never explained the fourth dimension part.
Well, they're not shocking him with time. That would be fun.
Sure. Yeah. No. They didn't. Yeah. They didn't do that.
And I don't. And for me, I don't mind. I really. And this comes from loving Roy Thomas's All-Star Squadron. I don't think dark, like storytelling, right, is out of place in a Golden Age setting.
Sure.
As long as it is offset by genuine, full-on, barrel-chested heroism.
So let me make one thing clear here.
When the good guys, when you can believe that they believe that the world ought to be that way, you can have villains that are just dirty, and that just makes it better.
So let me make one thing clear. I am not saying, and I just want to make this clear for the audience specifically, I am not saying that I am opposed to dark, gritty stories, or I'm opposed to stories where superheroes are super brutal or whatever. I read Watchmen. I appreciate Watchmen. It's not the most fun read, but what I'm saying is that if someone came up and said, I am doing a deconstruction of the Golden Age, I'd probably roll my eyes a little bit because deconstruction's a bit played out for me, but I can respect that. The part that I keep kind of struggling with is the fact that ostensibly, when you look at the marketing for Red Rooster and you listen to some of the things that it seems that Mitch has said, it seems that he is saying one thing. This is why I don't think he's doing it on purpose, but I think that there's a tonal confusion going on where he says, I want to not deconstruct, but he's using all of the deconstruction playbook tools. And it's like, well, if you're just going to do deconstruction, that's fine. Well, then do that. But you can't say I'm not doing a deconstruction and then do a deconstruction and say that you're being consistent with a vision that's not deconstructive.
Yeah.
And that's where it seems like wires are being crossed in the story. And so like there seems to be a lot of confusion that happens when you read this. And it's not like there's nothing that confusing in the story. It's a very straightforward story. I thought it was ultimately, I would like to read more Red Rooster. I'm interested to see where it goes. But there seems to be thematic and tonal contradictions, and it's crossing wires for me, and I'm just kind of like, I feel confused even though it's not a confusing story.
Well, I mean, the story itself is confusing, but the manner in which the story is told is unimpactful. There's just nothing there. I mean, it's like there's nothing to believe in. There's no one to care about. There are all of these puppets and ciphers that have their place in the shadow play, but nobody cares.
I don't know if this makes sense or not, but before the book came out and we saw the characters, and I saw Red Rooster and Strong Boy and Midnight and some of the villains, I had all these unwritten, unplotted stories in my head pop up immediately just at the look of the characters. If I were a kid, I'd be like, give me these action figures, and then I'd read the book. I'm like, but this never happened. That's not my characters. I would love to just play with the design and the look of the characters and just have them posters and action figures. But the book was a letdown.
I did appreciate, because we have been, as a positive, I did appreciate that they teased, because the minute you see Strong Mad Lad and the minute you see Sluggy Brewster, or Slugmeister, whatever. I keep getting Slugmug, yeah. The minute you see the two of them, you go, the inner child in me was like, I want to see the two strong guys fight. And so if they were being really deconstructive, they probably would have screwed that up. But I think the story in the third issue delivers on the slug fight you want to see. You get the two bruisers, they get to go at it. And so props to Patrick Stiles and Mitch. It's like you did deliver on that. And that was kind of cool. Yeah, that was a nice.
They got three things right.
I like that.
You still don't know who the main bad guy is, the guy who's made up of insects.
Well, yeah, he is supposed to be an embodiment of the evil force that has to bring down the Rooster Club, because the Rooster Club represents hope.
So what's Red Rooster going to do? Punch it?
He's going to inspire people to hope. Being an absolute loser and walking away from everything when nothing that went on would end up with. And here's the other part: the thing at the end, right? So there was a natural disaster. I mean, there was a disaster that happened. There were these criminals, and everybody saw these criminals doing these criminal things, right? And even the dude in the Red Rooster costume, it's not outside of the realm of explanation for a world in which they live, where bad guys exist and costumes exist, right? It's sort of a PR disaster.
Yeah, but the bug, yeah. The bug guy was interesting, and he's clearly when Mitch says, "Oh, there's an eldritch Lovecraftian influence," it's very obvious that that's what he's talking about.
Yeah.
And it gets into sort of thematic evil. The guy where he's like, he seems to be much more representative of evil, and he's not even interested in killing Red Rooster, even though it's obvious that he could, because he knows he's the one who actually spills the beans, and that's why Red Rooster's parents die, because without him just spilling and just saying, "Oh yeah, by the way, I just know who Frank Cooper is," none of the bad guys would have been able to do what Strong Mad Lad ends up blaming him for, which is another issue I'm going to get into later, which is the fact that.
And I got to back up. I do have to back up, because I said the only thing I had to read back twice was the portal scene. I forgot that I didn't pick up that the Coopers were dead.
Yeah,
they were just shocked and as far as I knew, just passed out. Right.
I was wondering. The minute I saw them shocked, it was like, are they dead? Or it was ambiguous, and then it was like, it's Strong Mad Lad who says they're dead. He has to tell you. Yeah.
But he wasn't even there when it happened. So how the hell does he know? Right.
Well, it's because the scene happened. They do that sort of like panel magic where some stuff happened we didn't see, but they didn't. There probably needed to be at least a caption box to say a week later or something.
Yeah, that was Strong Boy's main job, was to find all the people who were dead, because he came and told Frank, your parents are dead. Oh, and there's not even, I went to the wreckage of the plane and there's not even enough of midnight to bury. His job was a reconnaissance of the dead.
Well, and it's because Frank Cooper was incapable of like doing anything because he sucks. But anyway, back to what I was saying earlier, right? Is like all the stuff that happened, right? If he went to the police, they showed up, they investigated everybody, right? There is zero chance that Frank Cooper isn't walking away from that.
So right? before we get, I feel like our audience may, because we've been jumping around a bunch. I want to give a brief skeleton of what happens in the story, so that some of what we're saying makes some sense, at least in retrospect.
Okay. What happens in the story is a brief skeleton. So
that's accurate.
You could have just read the damn thing. Now listen, audience, we have spoiled a ton of stuff.
Yeah.
But if you hadn't read the book, you might not have noticed it, and you could have turned the page and be like, I remember this. They were talking about this. This really made Reese mad. So, but now Twitless is going to ruin the entire book for you by telling him in order.
Yeah, the whole thing. And I'll say, like, ultimately, I kind of like the book, and I'm kind of like, I have a hard time actually telling you exactly what my rating is, because I can't rate this book without seeing more of the story. And I feel like if the story redeems itself by redeeming what it wants to redeem, I feel like I might feel very much more positively disposed to it. As it stands right now, I'm just kind of like, what? And like I said, and there's a lot of there's certain issues that I would like to see corrected. All right, brief skeleton. So this is a flashback. So where we start the story off, we have Frank Cooper, and he is definitely not Red Rooster anymore. He's kind of acting like a hobo. He's jumping trains and stuff. And you're kind of, the first question that you probably have is, what happened that led him to this point? And the rest of the entire 3-issue arc deals with what led him to being basically a hobo on the run. And what led him to be a hobo on the run was the fact that the Red Rooster became a marketable thing, and he's kind of in Hollywood. Or Silver Screen City, technically, but it's basically, he's in the pictures, and as he's in the pictures, he's doing advertisements, and
for Ovaltine.
Yeah. And so while he's doing
Lucky Strike cigarettes,
while he's doing those advertisements, he finds out that he finds out his whole rogues gallery has broken out of prison, and his whole rogues gallery head for Red Rooster's hometown
of 5 people.
Yeah, that part's okay. I'm okay. I liked the setting of that, because it was like, that's where the Batman in the barn aesthetic hit, and you're like, oh, they're gonna have a showdown at the county fair. I liked that.
Yeah, aspect. I did like that.
So the bad guys show up, and they team up, and they team up under the auspices of a very evil force, and he, like I said, he's definitely beyond the pale. Who
didn't look at all like Lex Luthor. I cannot stress enough how much he did not look like Lex Luthor or Dr. Savannah or anything.
I thought he was okay. He didn't remind me too much of that. But anyway, so he assembles the Sinister Six, or however many there are, and is it 5? Okay. The Sinister 5-ish.
Well, there's really only 4, because the girl does nothing the entire time.
No, she drives a car, and she runs over the.
That's true. The femme fatale does drive a car, so the spirit of Stan Seraph is upon her to do nothing.
So she has the superpower of being a woman driver, and
nice spirit reference there.
She has the superpower.
I love the spirit. What can I say?
She has the superpower of being a woman driver, and just like that, she runs over the black guy.
Well, I didn't even realize.
I'm not kidding. That's what happens. It's literally what happens in the book. True. I'm not making this up.
No, you're not making
his name. Say his name. Pilgrim Shadow.
Pilgrim Shadow.
Pilgrim Shadow. Who I have to back up. 2, we haven't talked about Pilgrim Shadow yet, and that's a tragedy. Tragedy.
What can we say about him? He died.
He had great design, and he was on 4 pages.
I forgot he was in the book. When I did my 2-hour review, I didn't mention him once because I forgot he was in it.
I spaced it off too because he's so passing in it. He's right. For the record, so you guys also know, Pilgrim Shadow was the only character who stayed back in the country who didn't go out to Hollywood. So everybody else went out west, and Pilgrim Shadow stayed in the back country to protect the secrets.
So let me briefly finish the skeleton story because there's not much else to tell.
The secrets, I gotta say this, the secrets that Frank keeps in his dad's barn, because that's your hero, everybody. He doesn't have his own place. He keeps his stuff in his dad's barn. What a
I thought that was fine.
It's former Red Rooster?
I thought it was fine.
Well, who knows? They never say. He's just some farmer.
So the bad guys show up. The bad guys show up. I gotta finish this. So the bad guys show up, and their evil plan is to ruin Red Rooster's image, to ruin his soul in a way. So they're not just out to kill him. They're out to basically ruin the whole Red Rooster legacy. And their plan is to chemical bomb the county fair. And so the bad guys basically they don't succeed in the chemical bombing. But they do succeed in causing quite a lot of damage, and several people, about 15 people, die total. So there's quite a bit of deaths. So it is deemed a disaster. Red Rooster's female site, or I don't know exactly what his relationship to her is.
Who knows what she is? Never actually explains it.
Female compatriot.
She's the only one who's paying attention to things.
So she ends up disappearing into a portal that appears when the electrical villain electrocutes himself and a Ferris wheel. And the Ferris wheel spins so fast it creates a portal to an alternate dimension. Yes, that happens. Yeah, that came out of nowhere. And so because of all of this disaster that happens, Red Rooster is still somehow disgraced, even though that didn't make sense to me. And then Strong Mad Lad calls it quits. He quits the band, and Red Rooster goes on the run because of how this is all played out. That's the basic skeleton of the story. Did I leave anything? I mean, I didn't say everything, but roughly speaking.
And then after the big catastrophe, before he goes on the run, he goes back to his parents' house and just sits in the kitchen waiting for Strong Boy to show up and and punch him in the mouth. So that's great. Our hero just sits in the. Oh my! You
show up, yeah. Make his screen big. He's showing the portal.
Did you guys have better eyes than me? I did not catch that there was a portal involved here anywhere at all. And then she does fly into the center of the Ferris wheel, and it's like whoosh, the plane disappears. Now, the plane did. Correct me if I'm wrong on this, Twitless. The plane disappears.
Yes.
The plane disappears.
Yeah, it goes into the portal. Yeah. Oh, are you talking about the line where he says something about the wreckage of the plane?
Into the wreckage of the plane. There's not enough of her to bury.
I think that's a typo. Honestly, I think that's a miss. I think that's
not a typo. That's a whole sentence.
Sorry, not a typo. Sorry, that is an editorial. We call that in the business an editorial oversight.
It's a continuity error.
There we go.
And that's
hold on.
That's 4D man's real powers, continuity error.
Wait. Let me read that. Wait. There may be a slightly more generous way to read that, because he says wreckage, right? Does he specify what type of wreckage? Because technically the Ferris wheel was wrecked. So he might
to the wreck of the Majestic.
Oh no, you're right. No, that's an oversight. Yeah, that's an oversight.
No, wait. Actually, hang on a second. I'm not sure. The Majestic's the name of her plane. I think that she has already bailed. That's right.
Plane. She did bail on the plane because she's in Firebug's plane.
That's right. They didn't know that she was on Firebug's plane. They didn't know she jumped planes.
Yeah, they wouldn't have. They wouldn't have noticed in a plane wreckage. They wouldn't have noticed that. I'm
fair. Sorry, Patrick. We were wrong.
Yes, we were wrong. I was wrong.
But I do agree. I do agree. The plane does, in fact, that's the plane going through the portal is what told me it was a portal. Otherwise, it would have just been a ball of energy that could have just disintegrated stuff. The fact that the plane actually kind of like the way it's drawn, the plane looks like it's going through it.
And then the Ferris wheel is still there afterwards.
Exactly. That's what told me it's a portal. So there wouldn't be a wreckage if it went into another dimension. So I think, that's an oversight. That's a mistake.
Okay. Earlier a few moments ago in the chat, Carl says Wait, the Red Rooster's on the run because I feel like I missed something. Here's the line.
You did miss something.
Well, there's a lot to miss.
As in we all missed something. It's not you.
And
it's actually yet. But here's the line. A whole lot of people who should have run for their lives stuck around to watch the Red Rooster show. And a lot of them ain't breathing, or worse, are just gone. The news rags have some choice words to say about all that. Early editions are already hitting the streets, and somebody's got to pay, and the bad guys are all gone. There'll be a warrant out for you before your cornflakes get soggy. I won't tell them where you are, Frank, but I'll sure as hell tell them you're the reason this nightmare descended on Big Town. It's over, Frank. No more cola ads, no more fan clubs, no more Strong Boy, and no more Red Rooster.
So this is the part of the story that I found to be, we've had like little minor gripes here and there. I found this to be probably one of the, if not the weakest narrative points, because the crux of the story is meant to be that Red Rooster the point of the story is that Red Rooster falls and that he's going to eventually get back up. It's Dark Knight Rises.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, okay, you got me hooked. I can follow that along. In order for him to fall, we need to see him fall. The story doesn't show him falling. The story shows him being, we don't get to see much of him, but what we see of Red Rooster is that he's fairly consistent. And he's fairly, I would say, he's crime fightery.
Maybe he's naive. Maybe he's an idiot. Right?
I think he's just a straightforward kind of superhero type. But at the same time, he does nothing wrong. Even at the beginning, when they try to imply, because Strong Mad Lad says, it's your fault that they're dead because you basically did the Coca-Cola ads. And that's completely wrong, because the reason why the villains want to kill him and his family is not because he's doing ads for Coke. The reason why they want to kill him is because he put them in jail, and they would have wanted to kill him no matter if he was on a movie reel or selling Coke or not.
That's not what I took from that.
Nothing about the Coke had anything to do with, but Strong Mad Lad specifically says you made a flashy show of fighting crime. And it's like, the minute he put the suit on, he made a flashy show of fighting crime.
Yeah.
Has nothing to do with the Coca-Cola ads. If they wanted to do this right, they should have done this. They should have made a dirigible. Dirigibles are great for the 1930s. A dirigible that had Red Rooster on the side. And that's what that should have made that marketing thing crash. Then it would have been, oh, your ego, your hubris, your name on the side of a dirigible. Oh, the humanity. It would have even fit it would have fit the theme. They should have done that, because then at least there would have been a narrative bit of, I call it a tendon. There was some connective tissue that was missing between the idea that Red Rooster is either compromised on his values or compromised in some way that gives Strong Mad Lad a reason to hate him and gives the public a reason to hate him. But we don't have that. The story is just him being a regular superhero. He goes to catch supervillains who already have broken out of prison and were already going to do evil things and kill people. Nothing that Red Rooster did made that situation worse.
See, what I was taking from Strong Boy's antagonism toward the whole Coke commercials and everything else wasn't that, because you're doing these commercials, the bad guys are coming after you. Sure. But more like, because you're doing these commercials, instead of doing the job, the bad guys are coming after you, because you didn't stop them early enough. You were too busy making commercials.
But that does, that in theory that could work, but it doesn't fit what actually happens in the story.
Right. And
because they break out of jail. He has nothing to do with that. And the minute he finds out they're out of jail, he's on the plane. He couldn't have done anything better. So Strong Mad Lad specifically says you made a show of fighting crime.
Yeah.
And it's like, you did that the minute you put the costume on. Coke had nothing to do with that. Right. But he's using the Coke as part of the reason why he's mad. And it makes no sense.
Well, and the other thing about it is, too, even if the guy is saying it's too much about show, it's not enough about actually doing the job, which that might be a legitimate argument if we'd seen that. But once again, we didn't see any of that. We don't see him turning up a chance to save the day because of it. We're told that might be happening, because he's not on the streets enough. He's too busy at the thing. But do we see it? No, we don't see it. It's once again, it's the Phantom, not Phantom Menace. It's the Clone Wars, Attack of the Clones. It's all being told that such and such is the case instead of actually watching it.
Yeah, so there's some connected tissue that was missing, and that the way that ended, I was just like, and because there was no reason for Strong Mad Lad to really hate Red Rooster, at least even in my mind, it's not even just that he could have a bad reason for hating him, but I was just like, your reasons don't make even basic logical sense. It just made me want to hate Strong Mad Lad even more. It just makes him look like not only a jerk, but a completely unreasonable jerk. And it's I want to like this guy, but like you're nothing you do makes any sense.
Well, and that comes back to one of my big problems with it's reflective of a larger theme, but DC films, and every Marvel movie, not every Marvel movie, but the large swath of Marvel movies after Avengers 2, they feature idiots as heroes.
Yep.
They're just stupid people. They're and like that's why I like one of the big things I hated when I finally stopped to think about when I got over my excitement for Man of Steel, because it was a visual feast and I started dissecting in my mind, what I realized is everyone was an idiot, especially Superman. And I'm like, well, I don't want to watch everyone being an idiot, especially Superman. That's no fun for me. I have to deal with that in my real life.
I'll say I didn't mind it when they did it with Ant-Man.
Well, yeah. The Golden Age heroes, I mean, if you go back, when you read the Golden Age and Silver Age comics, like, you could probably make probably some of the same critiques if you're reading some of the early issues. So maybe that's being thematically consistent. Right,
but some of that has to do with the environment that they're in, right?
Sure.
Because you also deal with like Batman knowing things that's impossible to know.
Yeah.
Right. And so that's sort of like it kind of fit both those things where it's convenient for the plot for him to know a piece of trivia or to not realize a piece of trivia because it gets you to the third act. And we're like, oh, I forgot the smell of sawdust for a minute. That's our clue that's going to solve the day. And, and that's fun as a reader of comic book mysteries, because if you notice the clue before the detective notices the clue, then, oh, you're really smart. And that's a thing that can fit in that kind of thing plays in really well when you're dealing with a young audience. But this is clearly not written for a young audience. And everybody at every step, with the exception of Pilgrim's Shadow and probably Midnight as well, every other character just didn't see it coming. There's total blinders on, and there's no way to deal with there's no forethought that goes into any of this. There's no planning. It's just reaction, and I can't stand, especially when the book I was sold on, right, was a book that was hopeful, that was reconstructive, that was showing the grandeur of the heroic ideal. And I'm just like, there is none of that in this book.
Yeah, that was weird to like, that's the tonal dissonance. That rearing its ugly head. Ultimately, though, I do have some positive things to say about the book. It's I like the aesthetic. We all like the aesthetic. I love the coloring. We all love the coloring. I actually am interested because I like a lot of the character design, because I like the character. And RJ, you were mentioning this because you love the character design so much. I think we're all interested to see more of these characters. I think we just would like to. Okay, well, Reese is not. I still am. I still want to see more of these characters, but I am hopeful, because I want to be positive. I'm hopeful that they can turn around some of the gaps and missing tissue, and to address some of those things and build a stronger story from what they have, because they have a skeleton, and if you have a skeleton, you can put some muscle in there and build something from it.
There's a problem with that thinking, Twitless, right? The problem is that this took 3 years to make.
Well, Mitch will not be creating Red Rooster 2. He will be hiring someone else to do it.
Right. But I have no trust in the ability of somebody to spot talent who hired Patrick Stiles, because this is trash.
Oh, don't be mean to Patrick. Patrick had a hard job. Patrick had a hard job.
Well, he did. He did have a hard job, and he utterly botched it. This is an abortion. This is somebody who
That might be a little too far. It might be a little too far.
Somebody This was written by somebody who read Watchmen when they were 17 and said, well, that's the baddest ass shit I've ever read. I'm going to make my life recreating that. That's all it is.
Let me paint a scenario.
This is an idiot's rendition. This is an idiot's rewriting of Watchmen. It's garbage in terms of the story content on
Let me paint a little bit of a scenario, and again, I'm not going to justify it, but I am going to explain a little bit that might give Patrick. I want to give Patrick as much grace as I possibly can, because Patrick was hired to be the editor, and so that's not. But let me finish.
Not true.
Let me finish.
That is literally not true.
What do you mean?
Patrick is Mitch's college roommate. Bringing Patrick in was always plan one.
No, but he brought him on as an editor, and so the person. Well, let me finish.
The futurists was Mitch and Patrick hanging out in their dorm room till all hours.
Right.
That's what the futurist was.
But I'm not talking about the futurist. I'm talking about Red Rooster. And for Red Rooster, Mark Pellegrini was supposed to be the writer. And this you can clearly see that behind the scenes when it comes to the story, that the story got basically Seven has been using chicken puns this entire night. So I'm going to use a chicken pun as well.
I love chicken puns.
The story was like a carton of eggs that got thrown up in the air, and I feel like Patrick had to catch the eggs as they were tossed up in the air. And so he went from being the person who's probably, when we talk about editor, we probably were looking at someone who was supposed to check for the inconsistencies, like the oversight that RJ noticed, and like the typos, right? Editor, maybe. It might be just glorified proofreader. We don't know. Suddenly he's being tapped to fill in the hole that was left by Mark Pellegrini leaving the project. And so I want to give at least a little bit of slack to somebody who is given a drastically different job. Like Reese, if you worked on Kyrie for a bit, or you've collaborated, yep. What if something like this happened where you were doing like a pitch-in story like you did for Kyrie, suddenly you had to be the main writer for the main story? I know you would do your best work, but if someone came in afterwards and said, oh my gosh, I'm a Kyrie expert and you screwed up, there might be a certain point where you're like, dude, like this happened 11th hour. I did the best that I could, and I was supposed to be just the proofreader on this. So I want to give him just a little bit of slack there, because of when you kind of read between the lines of the behind the scenes, it's like, how good of a job could you do with all of the craziness probably going on behind the scenes here?
Yeah. So
I'm not fully justifying it. I'm just saying that I think that we could cut him a little slack.
Here's the situation why I have to take issue with this. Right? Okay. Is that this, and this is my opinion, and I know that people disagree with me, this is cancer to the root, right? Like the whole concept is just the same deconstructed story we've all read. It's Watchmen. It's Kingdom Come. It's Identity Crisis. It's Final Crisis.
It's everything. It's everything you hate.
It is the same deconstructed postmodernist story that we've been reading for 30 years. I'm done with it. I'm over it. It's just trash. It's derivative. It's nonsense. It is garbage at word one.
So if
I believe, and this is just speculation, having read much of Mark's other stuff, I think that Mark was sidelined because he was trying to direct them away from making a Watchmen story, but Mitch refuses to let go of his vision of making the next Watchmen because he's that kind of visionary.
Is he?
I believe he is.
Do you believe so? Okay.
I do believe he is.
That's some interesting stuff. I will say this, though. I think, Reese, that you've probably felt even more personally slighted by this book, considering how much you have distaste. You've grown weary and distasteful, because we've streamed a bunch. And so you've gone on for quite a bit, justifiably so in some cases, about how much the taste has worn out its welcome. You have distaste for the deconstructive story, especially the deconstruction of myth that you like so much. So in order for this book to advertise itself as Little Timmy, we're rebuilding the Golden Age, and then to have that bait and switch, I bet you that's got to hit you on a personal level.
Yeah, I suppose. I mean, in terms of, like Matthew Reese doesn't feel like wounded. I don't cry myself to sleep over it, right?
Okay.
But I will say that, like, this is the embodiment of everything that's wrong with this might as well be like My Two Moms. I mean, it's everything that's wrong with it's everything that's wrong with modern fiction.
So I wouldn't go as far with that. Like I said, I would pick up Red Rooster issue 4 at least. If they gave me more, at least a hint of the hope, and if they were able to answer some of my tonal issues, I might be more excited about it. I do agree with most of the criticisms that you level, especially when it comes to the thematic side of things. Because, like I said, it feels like wires are being crossed.
Yeah.
And I'm like, okay, uncross the wires. Either tell me this is just going to be a deconstruction, or this is the part that I think is tricky. Let's say that Mitch says, you know what, I actually mean to rebuild the Golden Age. That was dark, but we're gonna, issue 4 through 12, we're gonna have him go on his quest to recapture the Golden Age. I'm actually curious how you would go about doing it, because the universe that he has established, and you're a big universe guy, Reese, the universe, if you were to describe the universe and the tone of that universe, how would you describe it? And RJ, I'm interested in your thoughts too, because we've been going out about it.
The tone of our universe. It is
the tonal temperature of it. What's
this universe? It is a. I got to put this up there. This is hilarious. This is cracking me up. That's true.
I'm loving it.
I'm not loving it.
The tonal temperature of this universe?
Red Rooster.
Red Rooster. Yeah.
The tonal temperature of Red Rooster. What's your take on that?
It's Watchmen's Minutemen telling us that it's a better time and showing us that it's not.
Oh, very well said. Very well said. Okay, we could end the stream right there. That's basically my feeling on it. Reese, what do you think?
Okay, so the thing about it is that, like, it is. I think that's a really good way of saying it, RJ, but I don't think that's entirely true, because you have the situation where the things that people are saying are not being reflected in the story itself. So, like, what you describe is exactly what Strong Boy thinks of the world, right? But I'm not sure he's a trustworthy narrator, right?
Okay.
But at the same time, like, if Frank is the image of hope that Bugman thinks he is, right? Then the world is really stupid to look at their hope from that man who is just so clueless and so inobservant.
So what's your, okay? But to get to the heart of the matter, there, what is your if you were to give the tonal temperature of the Red Rooster universe, what would you say it is? What's your even if it's your gut? What's your gut on it?
It is the world. It's definitely a Hollywood world, a Hollywood version of Bonnie and Clyde, right? Not the real Bonnie and Clyde, but like the movie Bonnie and Clyde. It's a world that has those guys in it. The movie versions of the real life terrors that we have.
Yeah.
The movie, the Untouchables film happens in this world, right? The Teenage Strangler happens in this world. It's a world that has horrors, real, like, terrible horrors, but they're perpetrated by caricature versions of people. It feels like it wants to be real, but it's just not real enough that happens, right? It's a silver screen world. That's the world that this stuff happens in.
It's Norman Rockwell illustrating Alfred Hitchcock.
Yes.
So my follow-up question is this: with the tonal temperature that you think that this universe has, is it actually possible for Red Rooster to recapture or even find a golden age and have it feel genuine? Is it possible to do so with the tools that we have been given thus far?
No, all he can do is beat the bad guys.
Yeah, I think so. I don't think that the creative team on there escape. Okay, so side note, this is maybe annoy some people. This may annoy some people on the thing, right? I have been reading through My Hero Academia, right?
That annoys me.
I love My Hero Academia. No, the thing about it is like I know some people are like, oh, but it's so Japanese, and it is totally Japanese.
Yeah.
But one of the things that they are able to pull off is the idea that one man can genuinely inspire other people to be better, right?
Okay.
That All Might is bold enough and brave enough and confident enough that he actually inspires people to be better, right? And it isn't just told that, you actually believe that people have it in that, right? That's what Red Rooster is supposed to be, right? Mm-hmm. That's what they tell us he is.
Yeah.
But there's nothing that happens that you see where you can actually believe that he has that impact on people. And the closest you have to that is Calvin.
Right.
In issue 1. He's the closest there is to somebody. Well, and even what Strong Boy accuses him of is that, like, oh, it's just a show. People are just here for the circus. Right. And so he doesn't buy it, you know? So, I mean, like, you know, there's nothing to demonstrate that that's actually what's going on.
So part of the reason why I asked that is because when you establish like in literature, right? If you establish a universe where the tonal temperature is heavily jaded and cynical, then if you turn around and introduce something that is very bright and noble and altruistic and superlative, the cynicism of the universe you've created will actually it's like incompatible, I think, with that superlative you've introduced, and will probably make that superlative look empty and hollow, even if you were to try and achieve it. Because it's like with Alan Moore's Miracle Man. So with Alan Moore's Miracle Man creates a utopia at the end of it. He creates like world peace. People can live forever. It's basically everything's fantastical because, you know, Alan Moore is a cynic, and he's just he's a pessimist. He comes around and says, I'm a pessimist. The perfection that Miracle Man brings about at the end of that story, it's a little hollow. And in fact, the Miracle Man's wife refuses to buy into it. She's basically like, it's inhuman what you have done. You've taken humanity past being human, and we're not really human anymore. And so, like, even that sort of quasi-utopian idea is undermined by the cynicism of that tonal temperature. And so perfection looks imperfect because of how everything else is perceived in that universe. And so for me, I think that's part of the challenge of dealing with those types of narrative tools of deconstruction. Because when you have a deconstructive universe, especially one that has a lot of cynicism and so realism, as some people call it, then even when you bring in an idea of that's idealistic or perfect, it looks hollow. It looks naive. It looks empty, because it's like, well, for real, we know how empty, how impossible that is. We live in the real world where people rape each other and stuff. And so normally when you want to play with the idea of the idealistic, you have to watch, I think, that tonal temperature. And so I think with Red Rooster, I'm curious, like, even if they would want to reach out and touch the ideal, how would you go about doing it with the tools that they've already established? And I think that would be a very challenging thing for them to do.
I honestly think the only way they could pull that off, and they don't have there's pieces in there, but they didn't show any of them moving, right? One of the things that Strong Boy says, you turned the Order of the Dawn into a fan club, right? If Red Rooster goes missing, if the fan club were to organize themselves and seek out Cooper and themselves, these people that he had previously inspired, if we could see their stories of inspiration redeeming him before the rest of the public, that would be a way to pull that off.
Because they're untainted by...
Because they're untainted. They're not part of that whole thing. They're the people that saw hope ahead of time. But we hadn't seen any of them. We as far as we know, like, Like it's all Hollywood executives that bought memberships to make the press look better.
What you're saying is the story would have to become, instead of Watchmen, it would actually have to become a children's story about kids.
Yeah, about the kids. Yep.
Yeah.
That would be my if after this savaging that he will probably never hear, if Mitch says, I gotta get that Reese guy on here. He knows a thing or two about that. That's what I would do. Is I would tell parallel stories. I would introduce a whole slew of kids. It'd be the Newsboy Legion.
That's an interesting idea, and I think I don't know if that's the only approach. There's probably another way to do it as well, but that's definitely I think a way you could do it. Yeah. So that's interesting. Thank you. I considered that.
In the true golden age of comics, this whole graphic novel would have been a 22-page first issue with compressed storytelling. You could have done everything. It's like, we're shooting commercials. They broke out of prison. There's an attack at the county fair. What happened to midnight? The Bugman has set things in motion. That's your chapter 1. That's not your first season.
Yeah, I mean, a real golden age story, like in terms of like the pacing, I think could have worked really well on it, and then you could have had the whole thing on it. A lot of the time was spent talking. And that's part of the problem that I have with it. There's so much conversation. It took so long because it had to take so long to have everybody say things when they could have shown them.
So you mentioned this. You mentioned this earlier, Reese, and I wanted to kind of touch on that because it's a concept that I've played around with that I might want to explore at some point. But you said that the story was decompressed, and I agree with you to an extent. But I find that with Red Rooster, and this is other comics as well, it's not Red Rooster that does this, but I find that there's a weird tension where they decompress and compress at the same time. Because there are elements of the story that are heavily compressed in terms of the narrative arc. The narrative, the relationships between characters are super rushed. Yes. And so there's so many things that are rushed in that story where I'm like, wow, I would have wanted, if you really want to flesh this out, you would need to take longer. So there's this, so I agree with you, but there's this weird sort of concept that I've noticed. And I remember a Marvel comic I read at some point. It was the first time I noticed it. I think it was Necrosha, where I was like, this story is simultaneously decompressed and compressed. And it's rushing the parts it shouldn't rush. And it's speeding past the stuff that it should take time on.
I think that actually goes back to exactly what RJ was saying. It's like, because the story is all action and you can tell that action much faster.
Sure.
But there's no time for character development or even like I said an hour ago, the whole thing left me caring about no one. About no one.
Seven's knocking him out of the park.
So,
and it's not like, we see a new crowdfunding thing going on for, the next volume. There's nothing that tells us that this is even going to continue.
I agree. No, it's the Saints, I think, was the advertisement at the end of mine. Because you get to the end of season 1 and there's none of, because like you have stay tuned here for the first couple issues, but then you hit issue 3 and then there's no stay tuned. It immediately jumps into the Saints. And I was like, when's Red Rooster 4? When's season 2? Are you even going to mention it? And they just like, nope.
This one actually has like the first 6 pages that I didn't bother reading because I can't care.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, I didn't read them.
Yeah. I actually...
He doesn't even say anything at the end of this last page here. Nope. When he opens his eye and looks up, it's like, and you look over, oh, there's the cover for what, the next chapter? No.
Oh, no.
Nope, story's over. Just, fade to black.
Yeah, that was the cover for the first chapter at the Walmart.
Yeah. Saint Rooster.
Classic EV classic. But yeah, and of course part of my like I said, it was I'm sick of this story. I've read this story, but it was beautiful. I got to give it credit. It was gorgeous. Credit where credit's
old school Hollywood. At the very least, please put John Wayne in the costume for we're going to make the red. It's Red Rooster Cogburn. We're just,
wow, now.
Is this a dagger I see before me?
Yeah.
Classic.
Red Rooster.
Well, and actually, I want to go back to something we were talking about earlier. We're talking about the dissonance between the graphic quality versus the whole and the whole thing. I mentioned the sans serif, right? The whole femme fatale, which is obviously, I mean, everything about. I don't remember the character's name in here. I can't remember, but
nobody does.
Hold on, give me a second. She's something. I think noir. Or no, hold on.
Everything about her was an Eisner femme fatale, right?
I'm still calling her woman driver. Is what
woman
I'm calling
driver,
her.
baby driver. But everything about her, and I mean everything about the
Jackal Rabbit
spirit.
is her name.
Jackal Rabbit.
Yeah, she's
what
Jackal.
kind of?
I don't know.
She drives the car fast.
Drives the car fast.
Yeah.
Everything about the spirit was not everything about the spirit. There was a lot of humor mixed in there, but there was a lot of grit. There was a lot of risque danger. There was a lot of that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
And like if they would have taken more notes from the spirit and fewer notes from Alan Moore, we would have had a whole different story, but it would have been better.
Yeah. I have a weird, I wouldn't call it a love-hate relationship. I have an appreciate and then hate relationship with Alan Moore. Mm-hmm. I just finished From Hell. The man can craft an interesting layered narrative. I can't deny it. So it's just there's certain stories of his that I just, even if I appreciate it, I guess that's the other thing I'd say about Alan Moore is that there's so many of his stories where I go, wow, I appreciate that. I never want to read that again. I see all the interesting techniques you use. I still have no desire to read this for a second time. I think the only part I might read of Alan of Watchmen would be the Tales of the Black Freighter, because that's just so interestingly and how garish it is.
Yeah.
But actually Watchmen, I'm like, I read it once. I don't need to subject myself to that a second time.
I just recently reread it again, so it's fresh in my mind.
Mm-hmm. My favorite part will always be chapter 5, the whole Rorschach part. And not because I'm enjoying the story any differently there, but the whole black magic voodoo thing he put into the whole thing. I mean, totally different show now. But if you just open up to the middle of chapter 5, where Ozymandias is beating the guy with the statue,
the symmetry thing going on.
The symmetry thing. You lift the pages, and you just keep lifting the pages and looking down. The panel layouts are symmetrical, and the action in them is symmetrical to what's happening all the way through the book.
Yeah, he and Gibbon. Is it Gibbons he was working with?
Yeah,
there?
Gibbons. Yeah. Gibbons. And Gibbons is brilliant. Like, I mean, like his art in there is so good. But also, have you ever read his World's Finest miniseries? It was a prestige format miniseries from like '89. Oh, it's some serious stuff. He doesn't do the art; he just did the writing, and it's a little adult in places, but like his dialogue is so sharp, his images that he had are so sharp, the characters are so well refined. Like that was like the second like superhero comic I ever bought. And
didn't Steve Rude do the art on that one?
I think Steve Rude did the art on that one. Yeah, it is just it's so good.
We're getting derailed by Alan Moore. We're supposed to be talking about Mitch Breitweiser.
That's Dave Gibbons, and I suggest Dave Gibbons' World Finest. Go seek it out. It's worth your money. Save your money on Red Rooster, but go look at old comics by Steve Gibbons.
I would say that it hurt my wallet to spend this had nothing to do with, it's just spending $15 on 3 floppies was just painful to my wallet. But if you can get a trade for a decent amount, I don't think it's, again, I reserve judgment on this story because I don't know how to, if you ask me how to rate this book, I have to give you 2 separate ratings. Because the first rating is one that has not come out yet, which is, okay, Mitch, I'm still interested in this story and in some of these characters, at least to see them become more characters. But what are you going to do next? Can you do something? Because like just as RJ said, this is it's a prelude to a story. So we don't even have the story yet. So I can't judge the story because we don't have it. So there's a big question mark for me in terms of how I judge this because I don't have the story yet. I have a prelude. So if we get a good story after this, I would go, okay, cool, rough start here and there, good story at the end. So I would give the rating that it was due. If the story were to end with this and I only had the prelude, I'd be like, this is just a prelude, give me a break. And if the story were to somehow, continue to stumble, I'd be like, and I'd probably give it a middling-ish or low middling grade because it's got great art. It's got some interesting aesthetics. The story I wasn't too offended by it. Even though it was deconstructive, it was not as deconstructive. I think, Reese, you're very sensitive to deconstruction because of your long history with it. But if you think about it in terms of deconstructive storytelling, we did not get a killing joke scene of a Commissioner Gordon in like bondage gear with like a ball in his mouth. And we didn't get the scene where Red Rooster is like, caught, doing something sexually degrading or anything like that. So, I mean, I think that deconstructed, as you mentioned earlier, you said you're just so sick of the same story and you just got yet one more to the pile. In terms of deconstruction overall, I'd say it's like deconstruction light. It's there. It's definitely the tonal temperature, but it's not that heavily deconstructive. Like I said, if you've read Alan Moore and you go, oh, this scene, or again, a woman being sexually abused, that doesn't happen here. No one gets beheaded. It's not like, there's nothing like crazy graphic about it.
But a couple of seniors got shocked to death on 2 panels.
That did happen.
Even noticed it at first until the guy at the end of the story told me they were dead. I was
like, and Baruch got killed off screen. I mean, oh wait, that actually did happen. I have another take on this, by the way, and this is more from the production side of things. Allegiant Arts sort of opened the door here by taking the book to Walmart, and you mentioned that you kind of felt disappointed having dropped $15 on 3 comic books. Yeah. I bought some more comic books at Walmart just this past weekend. 22-page Disney comic books, 98 cents. Now, if you start getting 98-cent 22-page comic books at Walmart in the toy department, by the way, placed where they were supposed to be placed, easily found on an end cap.
Well, because they were 98 cents. If you still put the $5 book in the toy department, they'd still sit there just like they do in electronics.
Yeah, or the meat department.
I think, and I think that some of the Red Rooster books, depending on which Walmart you're at, they got discounted down to like $1 or $2. And so like, I think that would be better. It would work better for them if they were to be around closer to that price point.
But can they now that the bar has been set at a 98-cent price point for comics, can they even function?
I would say so. I think they can, because Red Rooster is trying to say we're this higher quality book. Obviously that's a heavily debatable point.
Here's the thing: is like this. Like I got this at the Dollar Tree in my town last summer for a book, right? Is that
Peachtree?
It is Peachtree.
Yeah,
and it is a heavy. It's a cardstock, glossy cover. They're glossy interior pages. It is a higher quality than DC is putting together for $5 right now. This is like this is the quality of materials that like you're like the Doug TenNaples like ashcan previews that he's given out with his hardcover books of the next book. That's what this is right here. That's the quality that this is here.
Okay,
and
so
it's $1.
I do have.
And I don't know if
interject.
it's making money. I don't know what their production.
I have to interject. I do. In Allegiant Art's defense, trying to go up against how Disney can basically not make money and still make money. That's not entirely a fair comparison, in my opinion. It's because Disney can literally bleed money and still make billions on every other merchandising.
I agree.
So they could practically give it away for 10 cents and be like, oh, we're still going to make $1 trillion on the toys and the erasers and Band-Aids.
But here's the thing. Matt said that this was better quality physical books that DC is putting out, just from sheer physicality. It's also better than the books that Marvel is putting out, and Disney owns Marvel.
I don't know what to tell you there. Disney's fine with Disney can move money in economies of scale that we can't even fathom.
Well, and that's true, and that's one of those things where like Allegiance can't I don't imagine, and maybe I'm wrong, maybe they've got some amazing investors, but for a new IP, right, they can't afford to flop. And it really looks, at least in Scotts Bluff, like they're flopping because all those books are still there. We bought the entire line. If I could have got them for $1 a piece.
I think we'd have to have the numbers to. Larry brings up a good point I would like to mention, which is, and this occurred to me, which is that there's another tension or crossed wire situation potentially, which is if they're going for a higher quality book, why is it in Walmart? Which did occur to me. It's like if you want to go for the sort of like this is a collectible boutique item, why is it in Walmart? Normally people go to Walmart for cheap stuff for 99 cents. So those things were kind of running a little bit in contradiction to each other. And I would agree that is a potential issue with the Walmart approach and the sort of like, we're a higher quality thing. So yeah, that's an interesting point. That did occur to me. I brought that up on one of my review streams as well.
The reason I do know the reason why they're at Walmart is because Walmarts are everywhere, and the idea was mass appeal. And if they can go ahead and get them into places where people can pick them up, but the problem is like people aren't going to pick it up for that's that $5. Listen, $5 is a pack of Pokemon cards. A pack of Pokemon cards is years of entertainment.
So I'm trying to refocus my camera. You keep going.
Yeah.
I'm blurry. I'm trying to unblur myself.
Yeah.
Autofocus.
$5 is years of entertainment, right?
Yeah.
You're not going to get years of entertainment out of the Red Rooster book.
Yeah.
Right.
And for Evie in the chat, who's asking about books and electronics and in the meat section, that was a reference to the fact that the Allegiance Arts cardboard cutout was that was supposed to hold all the books has shown up in various places in different Walmarts, and it's never been consistent.
RJ, did you see the one? Did you see where mine was? I had a picture up earlier.
No, I didn't see it. Where was yours?
Okay, let me pull up the picture again. I have it right here. Let me share screen because this is rich. I've shown it a couple times, but it's why not one more?
I found the books at a Walmart. They weren't even in the red cardboard thing. They were on an end cap shelf with cookbooks.
So mine were by the bathrooms.
Well, at least they were there with all the other books, though.
Yeah, they were technically near the magazines and so on, but I had to go. Yeah, it was just the visual of it being near the bathrooms. Reese probably.
I found them. I found them at different WalMarts because apparently I'm a Walmart connoisseur. I go to a lot of them.
Oh, okay.
I found them next to the DVDs and electronics.
RJ, but he's down in Walmart country. There's all over.
I work in Bentonville. Okay,
we have one in our town.
I don't even have access. I have to drive like 20 or 30 minutes to access a Walmart. I'm in.
That's amazing.
I'm in backwoods.
Oh, but yeah, I've seen them in various places, and meat section's kind of a joke, but I think I actually have seen one at least in the bread aisle on the end of the bread aisle.
Yeah, and at ours they were for a long time. They were in electronics, and then they finally moved the end cap, the sidekick, over around the corner to where the books are. But at that point, the sidekick display had gotten damaged, and it wouldn't stay put anymore, and so it was sat on the ground, leaned up against the sidekick because it wouldn't attach anymore, and nobody cared enough to run some zip ties and attach it proper, right? And so. And then when they finally released the third books in the series, they had a new black end cap, and that was put up there. So it was.
And Twiddless, you picked up the third issue as a standalone issue, right?
Yep.
Did it still have the price sticker on it?
So by the third issue I picked up did not have the sticker on it.
Okay.
I don't know if that was just me being lucky or if they had stopped putting them on there.
Yeah, I don't think they put them on there anymore.
There was a huge hue and cry from Mitch, to the people who were doing that, saying, "What are you doing?"
No, I agree, because like when you try to peel the sticker off, it's you got to be really careful. You're going to ruin the cover. Which if you're trying to make that was the other thing, because to Larry's point, if you want a collectible comic, you want them in a pretty decent condition so that you can. This is one thing I've noticed, Reese. I don't know if you've noticed this. A lot of the mid-level streams that do really good numbers in terms of viewerships are comic book auction streams. People attend those in the hundreds. And so people really do, whether or not I see any reason to it, I completely don't, but people really get into that comics grading stuff and the condition of the book and how much you paid for it. And these people get on streams and they say, this is how much I paid for this book. This is where I got it from. This is what I traded for it. And they really get into that whole collectible selling aspect. And like that sticker thing on the front has got to be a huge problem for people who want to treat it as that type of item. So Larry says, Red Rooster, let's have a Golden Age Batman mixed with Buckaroo Banzai, doing an Alan Moore approach to superheroics and put it in Walmart. Well, when you put it like that, it makes it sound stupid.
See, and that's part of my thing. And this is the other thing is like when things first started going south, for Mitch in 2019, when he was like, "Oh, we're going to Walmart before the backers get it," and people were super mad. Elizabeth said, "But we're getting it back where the people are. We're putting it in Walmart. They haven't been there." And I'm like, "Listen, lady, newsstand publication stopped in 2009 or 2012. Walmart has been selling comics since 2017. You're wrong." I'm not saying you're wrong to put them in Walmart. I'm saying your selling pitch is not correct. I can get DC Comics 100 pages for $5 today. You're not going to beat that, right? You're not. And those are up front at the checkouts in the impulse aisles. Yep. Right.
Well, it depends. Like I will say, because we've all there was that video of Jim Lee, and he's like, they were in like a grocery aisle, like on the bottom shelf, hidden. He had to pull them out. Mm-hmm. It's like one of the major players at DC Comics, and he's at like a Walmart, and he's like trying to like pull the. Yeah.
I'm not saying every Walmart doesn't have, and like I don't think that the impulse aisles is necessarily the right place for that either. But because I think they ought to be back by the toys. And I think they ought to have a line of reprints that are $1. Just like they have the 99-cent reprints at comic shops. They ought to be having 99-cent reprints at the store. They ought to be selling digest comics right next to Archie. And I think they're losing all kinds of opportunities. But to say that Walmart doesn't sell comics is wrong.
That's fair.
Right? And $5 for 100 pages.
Well,
come on, man.
They don't. Well,
100 pages.
To play teeny bit of devil's advocate, what might have been attempted to be, the intention behind that sentiment might have been not just that comics are or are not sold in Walmart, but that brand new current issues aren't, because a lot of what you're talking about are reprints. A lot of what you're talking about are reprints.
Or these at Walmart.
Or that's a trade, though. It's not like the single issues. So I think what they're trying to.
The 100-page Giants did have some new material in them, and then there were the reprint stories.
Yep.
But you could also, and people don't really talk about this because they're always hung up on the DC 100-page specials at Walmart, skipped the LCS store, screwed the little guy. You can also get Marvel comics at Walmart in a grab bag of 3 for $5. And they were out at the LCS last month, so they're not like
but they're still not hot. They're still not hot off the press. So like I think that your points are very valid, but I think that there is something to be said for this is it's hot off the press. It's not a month or two old. It's not a grab bag. It's not a trade or a collected edition. This is the first time you can get access to this, and it's at your Walmart. And I'm like, that's not necessarily a bad idea.
Right. The other side of it comes to is like, I think there's a couple of situations that you have to consider is your new comic reader, right? Who's supposedly the target audience. they're not used to a system of hot off the presses because nobody has access to that if you don't already go to the store, to the shops. So your specialty shops, you're dealing with a distribution model that has left new readers behind and did it 20 years ago.
And I don't think you're going to set the world on fire by putting comics in Walmart with 4 titles. If this had been, DC or Marvel going through Anderson distribution and setting up a spinner rack, and you've got like 10 to 15 titles of different publishers, now you're going to start getting attention.
And if you had them at Walmart, at King Soopers, at Ollie's,
exactly
right? That's part of the thing is, and part of how Mitch was able to sell it was exclusivity to Walmart.
Mm-hmm.
Right. That's one of the reasons the backers never got anything. Part of it was also Red Rooster wasn't done until like December, which, okay, first of all, cards on the table, we're behind on a book. Ideal Comics, my big guys, we're behind on a book. I got to be honest about that. It's the truth. We had an artist flake out on us. We're behind. We also raised about $350 for that book. We don't get to do that as a day job. That's an excuse. It is an excuse. I'm going to be honest about it, but it's true. He still finished in December, right? So, like, Walmart got their books like the same month we got our books for the 3rd volume.
No, yeah, I think the fulfillment is its own, like I said, ball of, it's can of worms. We could do a whole stream on so many people. Yeah. The book itself, once we finally got our hands on it, is a different affair. And I'm sad. I feel sad for you, Reese, that you got kind of bait and switched with that. I feel that's got to sting a bit. So.
Well, and I said from the very beginning, 2 years ago, if the backers would have gotten their books, nobody would have cared about the Walmart deal.
Right. No, yeah.
If the backers would have got their books to start with. Right. And that's one thing that, like, if that hinged the Walmart deal going through, well, I mean, you promised, Mitch, you promised us, right? I mean, you gave your word, and you not only weren't late, you gave it to somebody else first.
Oh yeah, like that's. Yeah. I'm pretty sure at this point he knows that was a goof, or that was a big mistake. I feel bad we called it the Chick-fil-A tie-in comic because Chick-fil-A is good chicken. It is a Chick-fil-A tie-in. They should sell this at Chick-fil-A. I feel like instead of Walmart, you should sell it at Chick-fil-A. I feel like you would have sold more copies. And it probably would have gone way better. Chick-fil-A is a smaller restaurant. People are used to paying more for a higher, stock of item.
The corporate philosophy would not have gone along with the violence in the book.
Yeah, that's true.
That's a good point.
That's true. If they would have done what Mitch told us they were going to do, it would have been a perfect fit.
Unless they were fighting chickens. If he was fighting chickens, the violence would have been fine because the cows. I don't know if you've seen the marketing for Chick-fil-A. Those cows hate chickens.
Oh yes.
So you said to change the villain to a big chicken and the hero's a cow, and it probably would have been fine.
Yeah, even the Happy Meal box setup. I that would have been well, and like. Back in the 90s, like they actually had Chick-fil-A did have comics as a prize. They were Adventures in Odyssey comics.
Yep.
And so they had storybooks and comics depending on the promotion. So and they had their own. Actually, they had regular Chick-fil-A branded comics too that had like superhero cows and stuff in it.
Well, those were the calendars.
No, there was actually comics. I can
they had
pull
comics
them
too.
Was there? Okay.
I've got books that I picked up at McDonald's of all places. Brett Hull, Golden Boy. The Adventures of Brett Hull. You could get comic books at Walmart during the hockey season with your Happy Meal.
Yep. So, anyway, that's the whole thing. That wasn't the story though. Those are other frustrations that I've had with the whole project. It's been kind of a downer. I was really hoping. I reached out to some people. I was trying to find somebody who really loved the book, not because I wanted to destroy them on air, because I wanted to hear, man, why? What about it do you love? Because I know what I hate.
I feel like I can provide a little bit of that voice because I'm more positively inclined to the book. I think I gave it again. I gave my question mark out of 10 because I don't know what the story is, but I think I gave it like a 6 out of 10 to be generous, which isn't great, but I was like, I wasn't offended by it. I was, like I said, morally, I was like, or mostly I was like, tonally, I was like, what are we doing with these elements? When it comes to the skeleton of the prelude to the story, which is essentially what we have, I was like, all right, where are you going with this? And there were weaknesses that I pointed out, but I wasn't. I was definitely like, okay, I'd buy issue 4. And the strengths. The biggest strength, as I've mentioned before, is Elizabeth Breitweiser's coloring. Like I said, her back must be sore because she carried the book. And most of what I think a lot of the good feelings that people have of the book is just how the warmth of the color and how that draws you into the pages. I think that she did a fantastic job. And for Red Rooster 4, because Mitch, I think, is going to hire that out to someone else, you should still have Elizabeth Breitweiser do the colors or someone who's just as good as she is. Because I feel like without those colors, I feel like something very, very integral to the Red Rooster image I have in my head would be lost.
Well, and I think like Elizabeth's style is a digital cousin of watercolors. It's got a lot of watercolor sensibility, but it still has that. It's still definitely digital and has that to it. It's such a strength for for Breitweiser's like very sketchy style, and I just like it's artistically it's good. I mean, I don't, if your thing, and this is 7 chat says
we should have 7 on. 7 said he loved it.
I didn't. We're pals, but I didn't know that I hadn't talked to him at all. So I would have invited him on if I'd known he'd like the book so much. Yeah. But yeah, he says obviously writer guys have higher standards, which fair. I mean, and that's one of the things too. The other side note, yesterday on the internet, somebody tried making me feel bad because my webcomic is amateur. It looks like it's done by amateurs. Newsflash, it is.
Did you get paid for it?
Well, no, not at all. In fact, I've been paying to have it on the internet for 15 years. But one of the things is, especially the early chapters, it was 2 artists putting a webcomic together because we had this universe we wanted to let people know about. Yep. And it looks 100% like 2 artists 15 years ago did a free webcomic. But somebody tried to make me feel bad about it. I don't judge most comics by the art. I mean, if the art tells the story, that's great. But some of the best stories I've read are basically stick figures. You know what I'm saying? I mean, it all depends on how.
Yeah, I think there's a continuum. I think there's a sliding scale because there's a certain point where the art does detract from the story.
Yes. And
there's a certain point where the writing detracts from the art. So there's definitely I think some tensions to play around with.
Yeah, definitely.
Ultimately speaking, I would say I enjoyed Red Rooster to an extent. I did. I'm kind of in the middle a bit on it, and mostly it's because I don't have enough of the story to make a very firm judgment on it. The inconsistencies that I saw, and some of giving a critique is to notice all the things that you notice. So a lot of our some of the things we notice would probably be classified as maybe nitpicks. And then there's the broader issues where it's like, hey, this one kind of impacted my enjoyment of the story. Like I said, I think Reese is between Reese and I, we probably have much more divergent feelings towards the book after having read it. Because I don't think it's trash. But I could definitely, if you thought it was, and especially with the narrative of what you were sold on, I could see you feeling that way. And I can't blame you for feeling that way at all.
And let's be say, I mean, the one thing I want to go ahead and point to, like, if this is like, I think 60 pages, 64 pages, something like that of story.
Is it? I thought it was closer to 70.
Well, and maybe it is.
Because I think it's like 20 something per page.
Let me see if there's actually a page number on this last.
I think it's 24, because 24 times 3 would be 72. And I think it's like around 70-ish or something.
Yeah. Anyway, if this was, right, if this here was a like a Tenaple sized book where it was 160 pages, 120 pages, right? If this was just one huge thick tome and we got the rest of the story out of it, if I had a finished thing, I may have a whole different opinion about it.
Right.
But right here, with everything gone on, and I do appreciate the Brightwisers sending me the book in good faith. I do. I think that if I hadn't gotten it, I couldn't have been mad. Yeah. I'd have been annoyed, but I couldn't have been mad. And I do appreciate the good faith of sending it out to me, right? At the same time, this is not a story, right? It's the beginning of something. And if it finishes, I still don't think I'll like it, but it's not a thing. It's a thing, but it's not a story.
I do want to be as generous as I can be because I know that I just published my book on Indie Planet, and so I'm like, I can't wait for people to tell me all the things I did wrong in the storytelling. So
Give it time.
I want to be as generous as I can be because I don't want people to say, "Treadless, you wrote is trash."
Well, and here's one of the things too that, like, I mean, going back to this, right? Jack Irons, like I really enjoyed that thing. Especially the first issue. I love the first issue. I felt the second issue was a little slow moving until I read 1, 2, and 3 all together, and then it was just like it actually has a really neat narrative flow when you have the thing put together.
Gotcha.
So, by the way, I think the trade version is still available on Indiegogo today. So if it is, you should go get the whole thing in one click because 1, 2, 3 is the way to read that book.
Larry's saying he felt bait and switched as well. So that seems to be a recurring theme for people who were sold on that idea. I would not pay as much attention to the marketing, so I walked into the story with fresher eyes, so I didn't feel as betrayed. Okay. So that's I think how you go into the story does make a bit of an impact there.
And one thing I was really hoping to do, right, was one thing I want to kind of compare. The reconstruction of the hero is something that Josh I forgot his last name. T-Bird and Throttle. That's that whole story. And I've not read it yet. I'm very intrigued about it. But it's also taking place in a modern context, right? And that's something that I wanted to kind of see how it's done because I've heard really good things about how T-Bird and Throttle shakes out. And I've got the first Alterna, like big book of it, which is like 0 and like in chapter 1. Haven't read it yet. And I don't know when volume 2 is going to be printed because there's no news on when their next things are coming out.
Yeah, the other one that's doing a golden age kind of sensibility that's currently might be in demand right now is The Flock.
Yeah, he's coming on next week. Actually, we'll if everybody's said their piece, we'll wrap up. We'll talk about next week's show. I'm actually super excited. I've got Larry Bernard, I believe, is coming on, and Twitless, if you want to, you can come back.
Okay, may I?
you may. And we're having Scott Wilson talking about The Flock and Mark Pellegrini. We're going to start talking about The Flock because I invited him on earlier, but we're talking about retro books. We're talking about setting alternate histories, and we're talking about thematics. So
you couldn't get Mark tonight.
Oh no, I wasn't going to. I wasn't going to because
he's under an NDA.
Yeah,
he won't. I asked him to come on for a review of mine, and he was very kind. We're friends on Twitter. He said I'm under an NDA, and so he's not allowed to speak about certain things.
Yeah. Okay. Additionally, not only did I know that it was like even beyond that, I knew there was weirdness, and like I don't want to pick at scabs, even though I really want to read the first draft because I know people that have, and nobody will tell me anything, and that's fair. I understand all of that, but man, I someday when this is all a distant memory, I hope to find at the bottom of some dusty drawer the secrets because I want to know what happened.
I would love to see some of the behind the scenes as well, but that's just it may be we may never get it.
Interested in the politics of anything or the confrontations, but more like what was the original story and
exactly, and like and that's part of it too. I think there's
a lot he can't say though. So
and there's some things that I know that I'm not sure that like people do know it, but I'm not sure it's tacky to bring up. Because the first appearance of Red Rooster was not in a Red Rooster book. The first published appearance,
right, was in a Black Ops or something.
Black Ops 2, the first printing of Black Ops 2.
Because they were doing cross promotion stuff. Yeah.
Well, it was more than that, because because Calvin is a character who's been mentioned. So, but once again, I don't know if it's bad form to say all of that.
It's not. I'm pretty sure that Mark Pellegrini or Tim Lim actually just recently put a tweet out, because that's how I knew. They were like, the first appearance of it was this exact same thing, and they actually posted it to Twitter. So it's clearly that if they're comfortable with at least bringing some of that up, then it's
true. It really happened, but I don't because of my passionate negative feelings, I don't want to just be a dick.
Okay.
Even though I'm also just a dick.
When Twitless mentioned that, or when you mentioned it, it went from story by Mark Pellegrini, and then it went to story by
Patrick Stiles,
and that it was modified. My first thing that I kept in my mouth was that, so they got rid of all the rabbits.
There's Jackal Rabbit. There's one left. Yeah, there you go. That's the
little known fact. The dog was actually a rabbit to begin with.
A bunch of background bites. That'd be funny if that was the reason why he quit the project. There's too many rabbits here.
No, I'm sure it's not. But yes, so next week we're talking about retro style and alternate histories, and I think, because if you guys haven't picked up on it, I love that stuff. In fact, one of my favorite, and this is actually one of those things talking about the idea of that conflict of modern storytelling and golden age storytelling. One of my favorite, and I think possibly the best long form comic published, that's like a beginning to end in American comics, is James Robinson's Starman. I think it's great.
I feel like
definitely one of the best.
I think you say that at least once a stream.
Well, not once a stream, but probably once a month. Maybe
once every other one. I feel like every time I'm on here.
Yeah. Well, I mean, that's like, so
that's
I think they do a really good job in those stories, even when he goes back and tells some retroactive stuff, and some of it's a little seedy, but it still has to deal with human frailty and the counterpoint between how we believe the world should be and how the world is.
So speaking of classic superheroes, I just shared a link shared a screen there. So I finally have the Adventures of Omega Girl up on Indie Planet. Yay. So 24 pages, 4 stories. There's a little preview there, and another little preview of her facing off against Disaster Knot, one of the villainous neo-humans of Jackal. Yeah.
Great name.
Yeah. So see as she fights Disaster Knot, Love Potion, and the electrical villain Hijack. Print on demand for $3.99, digital download for $1.99. So if you're interested in some classic superhero fun with a inspiring, strong, and noble paragon of justice, check that out.
In a world where the future is today.
Yeah, there we go.
Yeah.
The sci-fi paradise of Angel City, plagued by the super villains and super criminals, but she often she tries to redeem even the villains. She tries to act as that beacon of hope. She's kind of like some of the things we were talking about with Red Rooster. So I'm hoping that I'm delivering on some of the stuff that you're missing there. Yeah. But please check that out. And I hope you guys like it. It's been a blast to make. My plan is to come out with 3 issues this year. I have all the art for issue 2. I just got some art for I think some stuff that might show up in issue 4. It's just exciting stuff. It's a blast. But yeah, check that out on Indie Planet. The Adventures of Omega Girl #1. So
sweet.
And I'm Reese, you're getting a review copy hopefully in the next week or so. I would love to schedule a stream to talk about it with you when you actually have had a chance to read it.
Absolutely, we will do that, because you've been here so often to pull my fat out of the fire on this little show that I have here. So.
But I will tell you this, that I will not betray you like you felt like Red Rooster did. So I think at the very least I'll get a couple of bonus points for that.
You don't expect to see me slamming my copy down on my computer saying, it's just like all the other.
So like there will be some darker points of the story, but I'm not really, when it comes to this type of storytelling, I do not plan on deconstructing. I plan on being, it's kind of straightforward in terms of the superhero fun.
You're a better man than I am, Twitless. If I got Matt to review my book and I'd done Omega Girl, I would be like going to Kinko's and saying, I need a one-off copy. I'm going to have page 1 being Omega Girl with the costume buried and her walking into the woods with her dog saying, it's all.
I'm going to have to make a variant cover and it's just Omega Girl no more. I hate being a superhero. That would be perfect. Reese just gives like veins popping out of his head. Not again. Oh gosh, that's hilarious, God. RJ.
That would be brilliant.
All right, with that, I gotta bounce. But
yeah. It's been extra long today, but apparently I had a lot to say.
All right, but it's been real. I love you all.
Thanks for tuning in, everybody. And until next time, keep reading comics. Hey, honestly, and I will say this: if I know Seven mentioned how much you liked it, if you guys loved Red Rooster, if that's your thing, I'm not telling you can't. I just hate it. It's not for me. It's not for me. I'm not sure who it's for, but it's not for me. You guys,
I would still buy action figures.
What?
I would still buy the action figures.
Yeah, the designs are great. I love every one of the designs. I love. Okay. Good night.
Night, everybody.